Hello everybody, this is Ham Radio Hobby, and today I'm going to be going over some of the gear you might need to go play POTA. Now, a little bit of backstory about my POTA adventure is I started late in 2022 when I upgraded my general license, and mostly upgraded my general license to go play POTA. I like going to parks, I like going outside, and the thought of going outside, doing a ham radio activity where I get to be the pilot, it sounded like a lot of fun. So immediately thereafter, I upgraded from my technician to my general. I'd already been thinking about doing it at that point as well, a little bit of full disclosure. After I upgraded, I went ahead and immediately started playing POTA. The gear that I was thinking about getting, there wasn't as much POTA content back then as there is now. So there wasn't as much about the gear. But the gear I did end up settling on this table. And frankly, you don't need all of this on the table here to be successful. I can activate a part just from this backpack, and usually this is all I bring along with me when I go to activate. Very rarely do I bring everything you see here, but some of the stuff that you see here actually just lives in my car, so I can activate whenever. So the first and most important thing with activating POTA is that it's supposed to be fun. It's an activity to have fun doing, and if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. So really don't sweat it, and don't be afraid to fail. But if you follow kind of my basic tips here, it'll be very hard to fail because you'll have lots of redundancy built into your setup. So for instance, from this backpack, I can activate 3 different modes, and I even have UHF and VHF with a little handheld here. That being said, let's start going through some of the equipment. I'll start out with what is probably the most basic setup you can get by with. All right, now let's start with the radio, and that is, of course, the infamous G90. This radio clocks in at about $400 nowadays. You can get it on sale for about $350 around like Black Friday and stuff, and you could probably pick them up used about the same, maybe even $300. This is an excellent beginner radio. If you're looking to get a full setup under $1,000, this is almost a must-have, I would say. Just because then you can spend a little bit more money on the antennas, versus if you go with my other option, which is in my backpack here, you're going to be a little bit more limited on what antennas you can pick up thereafter if your budget's $1,000. So again, this has a built-in tuner. It does 20 watts, which is more than enough on sideband and CW, and even digital. You can do digital on here with something like the DigiRig, which I have here. Great little tool if you want to get on the air. And really, once you have this, all you need is a power supply and an antenna, of course. So you can go with something like this Mighty Max. What is this? 9 amp hour SLA battery. These are okay, but they're not going to last you 9 amp hours. The better recommendation is something I'm going to show you here in a few minutes, which is a lithium ion phosphate battery, or LiFePO. Reason being is this says 9 amp hours, and sure, it might hold 9 amp hours, but you're not going to get all of that because the way SLA works. With a LiFePO battery, you will get all of that. Also, that weighs like 5 pounds. The LiFePO battery weighs like half, if even that. So if weight is a consideration, you're putting it on your back's going to thank you a lot more with not putting that on it. This is what I first started out with. These are ham sticks. These things run about 20 bucks a pop. You can get the full, I think it's 80 meters to 10 meters for like 100 bucks. They sell in a blister pack. I just have 10, 20, 40, and 80 in here. They all work just fine. When I started out POTA, I made well over thousands of contacts on here, and that wasn't even a good part of the solar cycle. You can very much get away with just using ham sticks, which are only 20 bucks a pop, as well as you can go yourself on Amazon. This is a little tram mag mount, and you can put this on top of your car. You don't even have to leave the car. Now, some parks you can't necessarily do that. Some parks you do have to hike into. This is not one of them. There's a parking lot right behind me. So if I wanted to, if it was cold, weather was crappy, it was dark, whatever, I could just go sit in my car, throw my mag mount up, throw up one of those ham sticks. It'll handle 100 watts just fine. So yeah, that's a perfectly good option. Another thing you see on the table here, especially for you technicians, I have an ICOM 2730 and it's hooked up to a Arrow antenna. Now this is really cool for doing satellites. You could also use it as a directional UHF VHF antenna and talk to people, let's say in the urban area, Washington DC is that way. I could point it that way, see if I get anyone on simplex. Also, you could just disconnect this and throw it up on a tree on a J pole. Obviously, not the antenna, the J. If you can't afford a 2730 yet or an Arrow antenna, this Anytone 778 is a great option. 50 watts still, but it's under 150 bucks. And you could put it in your car. You could take it with you. You could put it in a ammo pack. I've seen people do that. Like I alluded to before, everything I need to activate is right here. In this little side pouch here, I found this thing on like AliExpress, this little pouch. I have my key. Hopefully you guys can see it. I keep that in there with the cord, so it's quick access. And then we'll kind of go through all the other contents of this bag real quick. I have a tablet here. This is just a Samsung tablet. You don't need that. I prefer to use that because of the logging software I'm using, which is on my previous video, and I will link it, which is the Polo Logger, which is not available for computer yet. I also have just a standard notebook here. This is a Rocket Book. These things are really cool. I'll link these. You can actually like put a cup of water on top of this and erase the whole thing at once, and then you have a fresh notebook every time. Also, you can use the Frixon pens on these, and they work really well. You can erase stuff as you go. Always good to have a paper backup. And also, generally I don't carry the tablet with the laptop, but I also have the laptop here just for purely demonstration purposes. This is the Evolve 3, 70 bucks at Micro Center. You can't go wrong, right? To the meat and potatoes of it all, we have the Buddy Stick Pro, which is in here. Buddy Stick Pro is a great antenna. The price is pretty fair for it, honestly, in my opinion. I used this thing down in Guatemala. I was talking all over the United States with it. I've used this thing for well over a year now. There's been no points of failure on it yet. It's a really just great antenna. That's all I can really say about it. It's the best. The FT891. Now this kind of is the go-to POTA radio. Under $1,000, I think you can get it retail around 600 thereabouts. It does 100 watts. It does 160 to 6, and just overall, it's a great radio. It really is a great radio. The Yaesu FT891. It is a little bit of a power hog, but I mean, for 100 watts in a form factor like this, I mean, really, what do you expect? And I got this little Explorer bag from it, from Gigaparts, and I guess there's a little bit of foreshadowing. I plan on getting the Explorer backpack and throwing it in there. Now, as well, I have the Z100 Plus tuner. This is just in case I'm trying out a new antenna. The ground isn't very good. Maybe I need to tune it up. I could just keep this in here. It's pretty small, and it connects to my battery. This little buck converter. You can make these. Eric KD2 HWD actually made this, as well as my end fed there for me. But I've made them myself as well. It has these two little outputs, which is great when I'm using the 891. And I can just plug the battery into here. It also has a USB charger, so you can keep your phone juiced up on the go. Now, something else that's useful with the Buddy Stick Pro is this little extendable fishing rod holder. So this comes in handy to hold up the counterpoise, and you can hold it just about the height off the ground. You really the Bio-NO battery. This is the 9 amp hour, and I actually have a 6 amp hour in this bag with the 2730. The 9 amp hour is great. I think I killed it once, and that was after hours of use, and I forgot to charge it. So 9 amp hours, I mean, if you're just going to go out and do a park for an hour or two, this is just fine. If you plan on going all day, you might need a little more juice. But like I said, LifePo is the way to go over SLA. If all you can afford is SLA, that's fine too. And really, that should be the key point: is do whatever is within your budget, and don't be afraid to compromise at first and then get better and better equipment. I also have a little jumper cable. You will need that if you're using a tuner. The side pocket here, I have my FT5D. I would always recommend, even if it's just a bow thing, go with a UHF, VHF antenna when you go to activate. You never know if a ham's going to roll up. You never know if you're going to hear 2-meter activity, especially if you're in a kind of urban area like I am. It's not uncommon to hear people calling out on 2 meters. So if you're not going to bring something like this, at least bring something like this. You never know. Also, something I can throw in here, I don't generally take this around unless I'm trying a new antenna. Rig Expert Stick Pro. You could also just go ahead and get a Nano VNA. These are a little expensive, but they are better, I would say, in my opinion. Yeah, these are great antenna analyzers. This one is the model that goes up to, I believe, 70 centimeters. And other than that, there's not much else I carry in my bag. Usually I'll put like USB cables and stuff in here. In the front pouch, I'll usually put extra pens, and maybe I'll put a QSL card in there, which I'm a bad ham because I don't have any QSL cards at the moment. None with my current call sign at least. So other than that, what you see on the table, I have a DX Commander mast here, and it's literally as big as it looks. And this thing goes out to about 30 feet high, which is great. You could put something like this end-fed half-wave, which was made for me by Eric KD2HWD, and he gave me some different bands on there. You could put that and lean it against a tree like you see behind me. Some other equipment you might want to think about. Headphones. Personally, I don't like them. If you like them, more power to you. Problem is, I like to listen to what's going on around me. Headphones kind of prevent that. Also, don't forget your water, guys. We don't need you calling the ambulance when you're out at the park. As well, don't forget your sunscreen, because, well, you don't want to get home and be a burnt lobster either. So over here, I just have some extra cables. I have some connectors and stuff in this little bag. You can get connectors on Amazon for next to nothing. So as you see, you can bring a lot of things, but like I showed you before, you could condense it all to just this backpack. You could just have a G90 with the ham sticks and an SLA battery, or hook it up to your car. I mean, do whatever you want. Really, that's the fun of POTA. This is just kind of get your gears rolling and give you some ideas about the way people like me might do it. Some things to maybe avoid as a new person is spending a lot of money on a lot of equipment all at once. There's like an old saying, never buy what you can't afford to lose, right? So I would not bring out, your 7610 to the park and it rains and it destroys your 7610. I probably wouldn't do that. I probably wouldn't bring out $1,000-$1,500 radio and it's your first radio, and then you drop it off the side of a bench by an accident. Happens more than you think. A deer or something comes running by and knocks your antenna over. And guess what? There goes your $1,000-$1,500 radio. In conclusion, you should bring what you want to the park, and you should bring what you need to have fun and do a successful activation. This is just an example of the things you could bring. What you want to bring is up to you. The only wrong way to do POTA is to not do it, really. And remember, it's okay to fail, but your chances of failure the more equipment you do bring with you go down, but then also that's more of a burden bringing all that equipment. So my recommendation is find a happy medium where you have enough equipment, for instance, everything that was in this backpack, to do multiple modes and to do multiple bands. And 9 times out of 10, you will not find yourself with failure. Anyways, I hope you guys found this video to be informative and helpful in some way. And until next time, 73s, and I'll see you on the next one.